Hi, welcome to episode 509 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Blue Sky. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea where I sell my handspun yarn and patterns. Hi, how are you? It is Monday, February 17th, and I am coming to you from a cold and rather dreary area just outside Kansas City. Our weather has changed again. We are about to get snow again tonight and tomorrow, and temperatures are going to be in the single digits this week. So I have the faucet on just dripping gently in the bathroom so that our pipes don't freeze. And I am bundling up in all my knits. Specifically today, I was chilled and I am wearing my leftovers cowl. This is a pattern by Wendy Johnson, who is known as Wendy Knits, and I modified mine because I couldn't do it as written. The pattern as written has all kinds of charts to be knit in a tube cowl, and it's meant to use leftovers of fingering weight yarn. And basically what happened is that the pattern calls for you to knit it through several times, the same set of charts. It's like a quarter, I think. So I think you're supposed to knit it through 4 times. And I got bored and started adding my own motifs, both from kind of stitch dictionaries and things that I had. And then, for instance, like I found my birds on a wire as a chart on Pinterest and knit those. I can highly recommend this project if you have lots of leftovers you'd like to use. I will say it works best with a lot of semi-solids. You can put some variegates or tonals in there, but it does work best with semi-solids because a lot of the patterns are color work, and so they show best in kind of a 2 semi-solids against each other. The other thing I will say is you will be a master at color work by the time you finish, because it is a big project, and when you get done, you will be able to do color work either one-handed or two-handed in the round, because you spend a lot of time doing it. It's definitely what gave me my best color work. So it is all kinds of patterns, and as I said, some of them repeat, and then some of them I decided to bring in my own charts. So I knit this quite a few years ago, and it was a good use of getting some stuff out of stash. So I hope that you are doing well. I am having a very, very mixed week. So I talked to you last week and I talked to you a little bit about my computer. It turned out that what was wrong with my computer was that something had corrupted the operating system. So they were able to download all of my data, reinstall the operating system, and then put all of my data back. And so for the low price of only $400, I got my computer back, which, trust me, I am very glad. It means that I did not have to think about buying a new computer right now, and it actually is running a lot smoother. There must have been some issues. My guess is over the years I had downloaded software and files, and I have a Mac, and the uninstall procedure, it doesn't clean up as nicely as it does on a PC, where you kind of go through the uninstall process and it pulls all the pieces. And so my guess is that I just had a bunch of different pieces on my computer and it just wasn't working very well. So it is working really well. And then I haven't downloaded everything that used to be on the old machine in terms of software and various things that I'd used over the years. And I'm really kind of waiting and seeing what I really need and really want to use. So my computer is back, yay. So I am on my better setup for recording today. I do apologize about the quality of last week's. It was not what I would like it to be, but everything is kind of better now. And then sort of an interesting thing for me, so late last week, I was in a meeting with my boss, and then we were joined by his boss, and she came in to let me know that I was going to be moved to a new department and have a new roster of duties. So this was not something that I put in for. This is a surprise to me. The company apparently feels I will be better used elsewhere, and I have very mixed feelings about that. On one hand, I would like to go where I'm useful. On the other hand, I really, really like my current department and the work that I'm currently doing. And I did have a meeting with my new boss, and she's probably going to try and find someone else to take on a lot of my duties. So, like, I'm going to be going into the unknown, and that is not the most fun right now while the rest of the world is in superflux. So we'll see how that goes. But that has made the last week or so a little unstable, uncertain, plus the general state of the world. So that's kind of where I'm at. So today's podcast is actually going to be a little bit short because I don't have a ton of crafting to show you. I did a decent amount this week, but I just don't have a lot in terms of projects or specific progress to show you. So it's going to be almost all knitting. I finished a portion of some spinning, and I'm going to pick up something else for a little while, so I will show you no spin, but the only thing I really have progress on to show you is knits. So with that in mind, let's talk about the knits. Today I'm drinking coffee. I'm drinking it in my alpaca mug. I know I have shown you this mug before, and the coffee I'm drinking is a local roast from the roastery in Kansas City. I promise I will get back to tea next week. It just happened to be, I had some coffee this morning. So the big thing is that I finished another work in progress, which makes me really, really happy. So I have been working on this top or tee. I cast it on probably late August last year when I was going through a top and tee kick, and then it was right around when the weather was starting to change and all the fall knits were coming out, and I kind of ditched this one to move on to other things, and so I wanted to go back and finish it, and I did. So I knit this top in Treasure Goddess Treasured Yak Toes, which is 70% yak, 70% superwash merino, 20% yak, 10% nylon. And this base actually takes the colors really nicely. I did mine in, this is Song of the Sirens, and this is From the Depths She Rose, and I was knitting to make sure that I had enough for the hem, and I probably only could have gotten like another row or two on the hem, so I feel like round or two on the hem, so I feel like I did that quite well. And then I knew I was going to have a little bit of this left because they were the same length, and I used just a little bit more of the dark for the shoulders and the hem, so I knew I was going to be off just a little bit, but I'm really pleased that I used these up and got kind of the length top that I really wanted. So the top that I made is called the Hipster Top. It is by Joji Locatelli. It is a riff on her hipster shawl, in the sense that she took the pattern from the hipster shawl and then kind of put that on the sleeves on the top. So you start at the sleeves with this great motif, and then you pick up at the front and back, and you work your stripe sections until you get to under the arms, and then you join in the round and knit all the way down. And that makes it a pretty seamless top, which is lovely. And I basically knit it per pattern, with the exception of the V-neck in the pattern was a little bit deep, and so I actually stopped when I thought I would want to stop on me, and then just cast on the rest of the stitches that I knew I was going to need. So mine is kind of a V-neck, but also a little bit of a, like, it's more of an oval with kind of a scoop at the bottom. So you can see I just cast on some here. Now, the nice thing about this top is that, like I said, it's seamless. The other thing is that everything is kind of built in. So as you're working on this, you are actually knitting this has not been blocked, which is why it's a little fiddly. You are actually working the garter stitch edging on the sleeves. So that's basically already finished. And then you are doing a treatment, and I'm not going to give away the secret sauce in the pattern because it is a paid for pattern. You are doing a treatment at the neck that makes it kind of rounded so that you do not have to go back and add anything to the neck. Now, the one spot here where I may have to go back and add something is right where I cast on here, because this was supposed to be a V-neck and go all the way down until basically you just joined in the round, and so I have some stitches there, and so that particular part of the collar may not be the way I want it to be, but I'm going to wait until I wash and block to finish that. So then you just knit the rest as a striped tee, and then down at the bottom you have a bit of a length of 1x1 ribbed hem, and so that's what I have here. And so I have not washed and blocked this yet because I finished it late Saturday night and I knew it wouldn't be dry for today. All of my ends are woven in except for the ones right down at the bottom, because I wove them in at some point when I wasn't knitting but wanted to weave in the ends. So now I just need to wash and block this, and I hope this is going to get a little bit of drape to it, which it likely will because of the yak, and then I will go ahead and put it on my mannequin and take some pictures. So this was an easy knit. The reason it took me so long is because I put it aside and I was having arm issues and a variety of things, but not because I didn't like the pattern pattern or because it was difficult, you could certainly crank this out in a couple weeks if you wanted to. I knit the size 38 bust, which called for 2 skeins, 1 in each colorway, but you could easily modify this to be done in 3 or 4 skeins depending on your size. I have a friend who's just slightly bigger than me, and she said that she was probably going to do 2 of one color and 1 of another color, and then just vary the stripes just a little bit so that she didn't actually have to break into 4 skeins. So she'd, you know, do an extra like 3. This is a 2x2 stripe, and so she'd probably do like a 3x2. Anyway, that is my tea. Wildly inappropriate for the weather we're going to have today. I think the high on Wednesday is going to be 5 and the low is going to be -6. And of course that's Fahrenheit. So wildly inappropriate for this week, but I'm sure I will love it when the weather warms up. And I am pleased to have another whip off my needles. So that actually brings me through most of the whips that were on my needles. I have 3 more that are sort of in, some of which are in consideration and some of which are not. So that is, let me put that aside. The 3 whips that I still have kind of on the needles in progress, really working on them, are my niece's blanket, which I'm going to show you in just a minute. My Excuse Me sweater, which is what I started to knit for Nanny Swaymo, and decided that I knit the wrong size and I'm gonna have to rip back to the neck, and it was a lot of work, and it's 2-color brioche, and I have kind of put it in timeout, and I'm not gonna tackle that right now. I thought about picking it up again, and I decided, you know what, I think that one's gonna sit for a little while longer, and then I will decide if I want to rip it out and restart it, which is basically, I mean, even if I could keep the tube neck, I'd basically have to, well, I guess I wouldn't have to restart everything. I'd probably have to rip it back to where I did the sleeve separation and then continue on. So not quite as much work as I thought, but I had gotten fairly far in the body. So I'm not super pleased about that. And then the other thing was that I was not alternating skeins because I was already working with 2 balls, and I thought alternating skeins with 4 balls was going to make things very interesting, you know, 2 of each color. But I can see the change in the skeins. So that's going to be something to go back to. So that is kind of paused and on hold indefinitely. And then the final work in progress is my chicken. I have been working for the City Girl Farm for a couple years, and I am working on a chicken footstool for myself. And I would say I am probably a third to a halfway done. And I need to knit more, and I need to spin more, and I haven't been feeling motivated to pick that up, and I thought about doing it, but I think I'm not going to right now because I found something I might want to cast on. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. So those are the 3 works in progress. And like I said, I think I'm going to be tabling 2 of them for now, but I still have a little bit left on February. And I'm definitely continuing to go on the blanket. So let me show you that real quickly. It's not going to look a lot different. I've completed 1 repeat from the last time we spoke. So this is a pattern by Pearl Soho. It is a free pattern. It is called the Mosaic Blanket. I know, it's got a really exciting name. I will link the pattern in the show notes because it is available on the Pearl Soho website. It is a very easy-ish mosaic pattern. Mosaic is also known as slip stitch knitting, which means you are only knitting with 1 color at a time, and you are slipping the other stitches. And the chart is on the blog, so I'm okay to show you this chart. This is kind of what the chart looks like. And in pattern parlance, that's what this looks like. So this is the blanket that I have been working on. I am on the 2nd ball of each color. I have 6 of each color, and I will say that the yarns get used somewhat unequally. So I have a little bit more of the black than I do of the red. I think this is beetroot. I think this is licorice, and the yarn itself is Barocco Comfort, and it is an acrylic and nylon. I chose that because this is for my niece and her husband, and they have 2 rescue pit bulls, and I needed it to be washable and kind of indestructible. I was really afraid that otherwise it might become a chew toy, which is I'm not entirely sure it won't, but I'm hoping that the acrylic will hold up, and it is also easily machine washable. So that's what I'm working on. I finished 1 full repeat on the blanket, so it definitely got bigger, although it doesn't look a lot like it. I will need to figure out what to do because I feel like bringing this back and showing you every single week is going to be super boring, especially if I only get through 1 or 2 repeats a week. But that is where I'm at, and this is what I have so far. And so I'm just going to keep going, and hopefully it will be a decent sized blanket for that they can snuggle up on the couch. I guess I'm looking at it right now and looking and saying, oh, am I a third done? But I'm not quite a third done. So yeah. So that is where I'm at with that, and I'm just going to keep working on that until it's done. My hope is that I will finish by October of this year, which will be their 2nd anniversary. It was kind of supposed to be a 1st anniversary gift, but with all the trouble I had with my wrist last year, I just didn't end up making that happen. So hopefully it will happen for this year. So, since I was kind of down to one work in progress, and this one is, I won't say it's hard on my wrist, but it's not easy on my wrist because a blanket weighs a decent amount. I mean, I do have it on a circular needle, and I do work on it on the couch with most of the bulk in my lap, but I will say that I can only do a certain number of rows each evening, and so I was thinking about what else I would like to put into the repertoire, and I had talked about how I wanted March to be a charity month, and so one of the things that I did is I pulled out a bag of scraps and I started a hat. So this is a bag of scraps you have seen before. I used a lot of these scraps to make some of my garter ridge scarves that I knit last year, but I wanted to turn some of them into hats. And I had inspiration from Sarah Shira and her goodness, I don't have the hat pattern here. I will put the name of it in the show notes. It's basically a leftovers hat that she created for leftovers from making your gnomes or leftovers from an advent kit. And it is meant to be knit in fingering weight yarn. And really, there are no more than 4 or 6 rows of each color at a time, and so you can use it for lots of little bits and bobs. And what I did is she wrote the pattern from size newborn all the way up through adult to be knit in fingering weight. And what I did is I just went ahead and took my worsted weight scraps and I cast on for the smallest size, which technically would be newborn in fingering weight, but probably is a small to medium adult size head, probably small. Adult size head in worsted weight, and I went ahead and used size 6 and 8 needles, and I'm just working through that pattern. So I'm not completely convinced that I like the little section that I just did, and I might pull it out because the white is kind of harsh, but this is what I'm doing with my green leftovers. So I knit the ribbed brim for however long I felt, and then all of the remaining hat is knit kind of in these repeats where you have like a solid color, and then you have a second color, and then you have like a little bit of the first color peeking through in a little bit of slip stitch knitting. Again, this is mosaic knitting. You are only working with one color at a time, so it is easy as pie, and my plan is to just use this bag of scraps. And actually, I mean, you could, you don't have to use this color in this. I may use things so that I can just use up all of the yarn. And my guess is I'll probably make more than one hat, even in all of these colors. Like I said, I think I might pull out the white just because it's actually speckled, so I thought it would go with this, but it just looks really harsh in the, I don't know, I might leave it. Anyway, so I have all kinds of pinks and greens to work on this one, and my plan is to just kind of look at the measurements. So since I'm knitting the stitch count for the smallest size, but obviously this is not going to be a newborn hat, so I need to follow, I need to see kind of how big it is going to be in circumference, and then kind of follow for an adult sized hat in terms of like length to keep knitting, and then kind of I will have to do a little bit of math to figure out like how many rounds the crown decreases are, and how much that will translate to in inches so that I can make the hat the right size. The hat is written in 2 formats for either so it's written in sizes newborn to adult large, and then it is also written to be either a beanie or slouchy. And so I might just do the first one however long I think, and then if it ends up too big, it can be a little bit slouchy, and then I can go back and refine it. So my guess is, like I said, I will get, oh, and what I was going to say is this is really great for leftovers because like this green right here, I used up all of that on those 4 rows. I had just enough left that I stuck it in my drawer with the little bits and pieces of yarn that's like certainly less than a yard, and that's what I use to like cut and tie, cut strings to tie up my handspun skeins so that they don't get tangled when I wash them. So my plan is to use up as much as I can in all these little bits, and then be ready to get some things out of my stash. I have 3 bags full of scraps right now that I will use to knit hats in the next few weeks, and my hope is that that I will use up a bunch more stuff and get some hats out to people in need later this year. The only problem, as far as I can tell with this hat, is that it has a lot of ends to weave in. And so my plan actually is to try and weave them in each night that I work on it so that I don't have to come back and weave in all the ends at the end. But I guess I could do that in meetings or something. So I don't know. I'll just keep working on these and we'll see where these go. That said, I actually found a new sweater that I'd like to cast on. And so I was like this close to casting on a new sweater yesterday. And the problem is that I love the sweater pattern, and the yarn that I have yarn in the stash to knit the sweater that I want to knit. And as it turns out, the yarn is a little bit lightweight for the pattern. And so I need to decide precisely what I'm going to do. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit a gauge swatch and see what I get, and then see if there is a size in the pattern that would sort of correspond to the gauge that I'm getting, and see if I can just knit a slightly different pattern size. So the pattern is called Light Rain, and it is a Joji Locatelli pattern. I guess I just love her patterns because I've knit a ton of them, and they are pretty simple, but they have nice details. They are very easy to knit, and this one is kind of an oversized turtleneck with kind of a lace panel on the front, and then it has some nice details. It has a repeat of that lace on the cuff, and then it also has, if you want, optional lengthy cuffs in which you can build a thumb hole. So I saw, basically I was inspired by my friend Bonnie, who wore it to our book club on Sunday, and I was like, or Saturday, and I was like, oh my God, I really, really, really want to make this pattern, and I think I have the yarn for it. So the problem was that it's made with fingering weight yarn, and my size calls for approximately 4 skeins, and I had 4 skeins, but the issue is that the original was knit in Madeline Tosh sock, which is 420 yards to 100 grams. And what I have is some absolutely lovely yarn that is 550 yards to 100 grams, although I should weigh it because maybe it's 113. Maybe it's not quite as off as I thought. But basically, it's quite a bit thinner, and I don't think I'll be able to get the gauge that the pattern suggests with this yarn. I don't think I'll be happy with it because I think it will be too loosey-goosey. So the yarn that I have is yarn that I have been dying to use for years. It is from a dyer called Cozy Colorworks, and as far as I know, I don't know if they actually sell online. They do have a website called cozycolorworks.com, but where I have seen them is at shows. And this sweater quantity actually was bought at Stitches Midwest before the pandemic. I went in either 2018 or 2019 to work a booth, and I bought this at that show. But the first place I discovered Cozy Colorworks was at Rhinebeck years ago, and when I saw her again at Stitches Midwest, I absolutely had to have a sweater quantity from her, and so I splurged. And this is a great colorway. I don't think it has a color name. No, it's called Northern Lights. It does. Anyway, it's black, and then it's got purple and green, all like the Northern Lights, and I am so excited for this. It is lovely. It is speckled. This is 100% superwash merino, and it is squishy and so incredibly soft. I have used their yarn before, and I love, love, love their yarn, and I love her color sense, and she was such a pleasure to meet and wander in her booth, and so I have been hoarding this quantity for something that I really, really want to make. And I think this sweater might be it. So what I need to do is I need to wind these up. And like I said, I have 4 skeins. I need to wind them up, and then I need to do a swatch and see what gauge I really like for my sweater. And then I can kind of decide if this is actually going to be the pattern. So the reason that I did not cast on this weekend was because this was too much thinking for yesterday, and I was like, forget it, I'm just going to do a hat. I don't know for sure. I think I'll probably wind this up and knit the swatch this week, but I don't know how much I will progress because I'm actually going to be doing another retreat this weekend. I'll tell you about that in just a second. So that might be my next sweater. If not, I'm just going to keep going with charity projects and the blanket and try and work on that through March, which would make for a really, really boring March, other than the fact that I could show you some hats. But my hope is maybe I'll add the sweater in there as well, because both the blanket and the hats are worsted weight, or roughly worsted weight. It's a mix of like DK and worsted weight. And the sweater would be fingering weight, and so that would be a good contrast to have on the needles for my wrist. I think, I don't know. My wrist did bug me a little bit this weekend, and so I started doing my stretches again, and I started taking my ibuprofen again, and I don't think I've done like a huge flare-up because it's not nearly as painful as it was, and even the slightest twinge, and I am aware of it now. I think probably the spinning retreat and then some of the knitting that I've been doing has probably not been super kind to it. So I'm going to try and be super kind and get back into doing all my exercises and only knitting for short periods of time in an attempt to stave this off so it does not get as bad as last time. So I don't know where my spinning's going to be this week. That might be the thing to take the hit. I did technically finish 2 ounces of Polworth wool, mulberry silk, and yak in a dark burgundy, and I have put that aside, and I have picked out another braid. I actually showed this to you several weeks ago, but this is called Boiled Sugar Candy. It is South American wool blend top. It is light and fluffy and fairly soft, and this is from Hello Yarn. So I think this is what I'm going to start on next when I take up spinning, but I may actually give spinning a miss this week and see if my wrist will calm down a little bit. Because I would really not like to re-injure it and have to play with that. I'm having so much fun being back to knitting and not needing to worry about it so much. So I really am going to try and listen to my body and not make that bad. So that will, sorry, that's a lot of wrestling or plastic wrestling. So my final thing is actually I am going to a retreat this weekend. So this weekend is QuiltCon, which is in Arizona. It is a huge quilt convention put on by the Modern Quilt Guild, which is a national organization. I am not going there. My local branch of the Kansas City Modern Quilt Guild, so my local chapter, is hosting what they're calling Quilt Non, which I think sort of in the a la Weinbeck and some of the other things that people do when there are fiber festivals happening that they can't go to, so they make up smaller events. This weekend at a couple of local quilt stores in the area, they are hosting Quilt Non, which is a couple days of just kind of coming and sewing and hanging out and eating snacks and celebrating quilting. And the project that we're going to be making is we have been told to bring some fabric and bring some a free pattern or a pattern for putting together a simple pincushion, and we're going to make the pincushion, and then they are going to provide the stuff that goes in the pincushion, which I think is probably crushed walnut shells, but that is kind of the guild's gift to us, and then we get some kind of fun label to attach to it for participating in QuiltCon. So I have a layer cake, which is pre-cut 10-inch squares of fabric that I'm taking with me to work on a new quilt top. And basically what I do with those 10-inch squares is I cut them up into pieces and sew them back together. So I'm bringing that with me kind of as my project to work on for the weekend. My hope is that I'll finish those blocks and then I can start laying them out, and then I can put the top together. And then I will also be making a pin cushion, and my hope is meeting some more sewing folks in my area, maybe learning a few sewing tips, getting to go to a new to me fabric store that I haven't been to. And so I'm hoping it's going to be fun and a little bit relaxing, maybe. I don't know. Like, I'm a little I don't know exactly what it's going to be because I've never been to a quilting retreat before. I can sort of apply it to a knitting retreat, and I think it's going to be fun. I do think it will be a little more stressful than usual because I am not like super confident in my sewing ability, and particularly in my sewing ability around other people and moving my machine and setting it up and getting all my tools and, you know, kind of taking the show on the road, because usually when I putter at it at home on my own dining room table, and if I'm not getting the results that I want and I get frustrated, I walk away and come back another day. And so I won't be able to do that. Although I suppose I could just hang out. Maybe I'll just bring a knitting project just in case I want to sit and knit. Anyway, so that is what I'm going to do this weekend, and I will come back next week and tell you a little bit about that. So I guess I was chatty enough that the podcast wasn't as short as I thought it would be. I hope you have a lovely week ahead. I hope if you are facing weather that you stay safe and warm, that you keep your power on. We're going to keep our fingers crossed over the next couple days. I don't think it's going to be quite as much snow as we got in January. In January, we got almost a foot, which was quite devastating for our area because we don't usually get quite that much snow. But I do know that it's going to be really, really cold this week. We are not going to be out of the like teens until next weekend. So I do think this week is going to be a little bit hazardous for travel and very cold. So I'm going to cuddle up with my woolens and stay warm. I hope that you are out of harm's way. I hope that you are healthy and that you are able to find some solace and joy in your crafting. I will say until next week, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and all of those other crafts, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.